This is Naoki Yoshida,
This is Fern Hall.
and you are listening to Aetheryte Radio.
Aetheryte Radio.
Here we go!
Hello and welcome to Aetheryte Radio, Gamerscape's Final Fantasy XIV podcast. I'm FusionX. Joining me today, we've got Zanidra, we've got Aldino, and we've got Rook.
What up?
Hello.
Today we are going to bring back our Dear Aetheryte Radio segment. So this past week, we asked you guys to submit questions if you had any for us, and we're just going to run through them and talk on them. I'm sure we'll go off on several tangents. But if you are tuning in right now live on Twitch and you did not submit a question, feel free to drop one in the chat, and we'll see if we can't work it in here between all of these. So not really a lot of news right now. Lots of stuff coming up, and we will dive into that a little bit later here. Yeah, let's get right into it. Our first question comes from Enyo Coin and says, do you think the Warrior of Light is getting boring as a character? Every Scion has changed from the beginning of the game and gone through hardships, but the Warrior of Light hasn't. I know as an MMO, some of it that is up to the player, but the whole silently nodding and being forced to do any small task being presented, even if you refuse in the dialogue choice, is getting boring.
This is interesting because I do feel like we got probably some of the most like character stuff in Shadowbringers that we've had for the Warrior of Light in a long time.
Yes.
Yeah,
Like,
I agree.
I would totally agree up to Shadowbringers because it did feel like, especially once we kind of like lose the Warrior of Light thing, there was this period of time where I was like, well, we don't have the crystals and we don't have any of this other stuff, and now we're just kind of running around doing tasks. And then with Stormblood taking more of a focus on Lys, and like you're just sort of there like supporting in the background, like all of that, it definitely did feel like, yeah, I feel like we're just sort of the token main character. But when we hit Shadowbringers and you get some of that great stuff, like the character interactions and those moments of weakness with the Warrior of Light, leading into all these discoveries and reveals that we get about them, and or the world that was, without getting too spoilery, you know what I mean? I think that's really interesting, and that really reinvigorated my own personal passion for the Warrior of Light. But I do agree that like the voiceless protagonist, it is a little strange in a more and more voiced game. And like I really appreciated they gave us more of like a dialogue interface in Shadowbringers that felt as though they sort of revamped that. It felt a little bit better. But I do agree that like there are some times where just the nodding doesn't feel as emotive as it could be, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's one of those things too. I mean, looking back, like the end of Heaven's Word is when they really started to give us as the player more options in dialogue. You have that bit with Papa Limo right at the end of Heaven's Word, and you have that dialogue choice. And they even said, like, at the fan fest prior to that, like, we're looking at doing things more like that. And so in Stormblood you had some, and I feel like even in Shadowbringers even more. I think with Shadowbringers especially, you yourself, the Warrior of Light or Darkness, right, hasn't really changed, but they do something a little interesting where we have Ardbert, which is kind of us, but not us, but kind of us. Where we see him as us, kind of, and you do have that bit right at the end where it's Ardbert talking, but it's your character. And so I think they're definitely trying, right? They're doing what they can, but there are, I think, understandably limits to that as well.
I think side quests, job quests, other things you get lure tidbits from, beast quests. I think that fills in the personality a little bit more as well, especially the job quests, because that's going to basically change your Warrior of Light based on what you pick. I also think, and this is more of a silly comment, but if you would like the Warrior of Light to voice act, read aloud the text as it comes on your screen.
There you go.
I mean, I agree with the role quest, especially this time, because each role has the original Warrior of Light from the first kind of in there. And to me, it's like you picked a role here's a story that's not about you, but you could find parallels to your main character, to your Warrior of Light. So like that's why I like the caster one even more. I feel maybe maybe not everybody likes their role quest, for the chosen role that they have, but I don't know, it just made me feel more connected because we got to see their adventures, and I'm like, yeah, I went on those adventures, like my character in my head did similar things, and that makes sense.
Yeah.
We also theoretically, we don't know, but it's kind of been majorly hinted all throughout Shadowbringers, where our character is super connected to something with the ancients. We don't quite know what it is. We have a lot of hints that
An
they're
idea.
Yeah, an idea.
we're probably, I'm not gonna say it for spoilers' sake, but we're connected somehow. So I think when we finally get that reveal, we'll get a little boost of interest as far as that character that we are portraying goes.
I think, yeah, and I think with, like I said with Ardbert, right, during that last cutscene where he speaks through you, I think that there's definitely a direction they could go where they could do more of that kind of thing, but like, and again, I don't want to spoil things, right, but well, we've had spoiler casts at this point, like, right, like that's
We have, but there's all, I don't know, it's so tough, especially with the Shadowbringers reveals, because they're so huge. Like,
yeah,
don't spoil it. Don't do it.
Yeah, I mean, let's just say that there are languages in the game, and they could theoretically make us just talk via a different language. Right, and the echo and stuff. So it's like we do have a voice, but I don't know. It's an extension of what they did with Ardbert, I think.
I think that Ardbert was such a smart move because for a long time now, personally, I don't know about everybody else, but personally, I was really hoping that we would get more opportunities to just like see our character privately dealing with things, because so much of it is like, yes, fetch quest, or you're just trying to move things forward. So it means like, oh, we are interacting with these characters, or we're doing these different things. And one of the areas where I think that some of this like boringness of the Warrior of Light comes from is the fact that I don't know if it's the engine they use or like what it has been exactly, but character animations and like emotive character animations, especially for the player character interacting with other characters, they're tough to pull off. And we haven't had a ton of them in the game, but the ones that we do have, like, they just stick out in my mind immediately. Like when you're holding Horschiffant. And when that happened in the game, I was like, oh my God, I'm touching someone. And like, that was baffling to me because it's tough sometimes, like that stoic nodding or the little things, like they haven't always been the most expressive. So I don't mind an unvoiced narrator, or main protagonist character personally, but it does stand out more when there's like sometimes not even the facade of speaking. You know what I mean? So it's like everybody else is having this huge conversation and then it cuts to you and you're like,
yeah, and I mean that was part of what was so great with the last patch is you have that bit at the end where whatever person comes and like talks to you, and well, you even get to pick, right, if you've done the job quests and stuff, and it's just like you have this moment of it's just you and this other character that and some really good water pouring animations, and it's great. It's like as I was thinking of this scene, all I could think about was, damn, that water pour animation.
It's good though.
It's so good.
It gives you something. Same thing with the part where like the Warrior of Light collapses on the ground and is doing a little bit of the, oh no, I spit up some candle wax. Like that part, I don't want to spoil again too much.
Right.
But like that also
don't eat
felt
candles,
very
guys.
Don't eat candles, like, but that felt very emotive. So like Ardbert and the scenes that you get with him, all of that to say, I think it really gave us something in Shadowbringers where for once we finally had a moment where it's almost like you are talking to yourself, if that makes sense. Like you have a moment of reflection about what has happened and how that affects your character. And although there is another character there with you, it does very much have this like feeling of self-reflection and this private space that you have in the Crystarium. And I loved that because I think if they keep doing more stuff like that, we will start to feel more and more agency and kind of emotion from the Warrior of Light as a person and not just like as our vehicle for as a player, you know?
I think the real solution is everybody just needs to start doing a little bit of self RP. That way your character just has a personality already and you happen to know it. Maybe nobody else does. Maybe it's not actually part of the story, but there it is.
Yeah.
I just hope that Ardbert is not the last Warrior of Light analog that we end up dealing with. I would love for some time in the future, we're somewhere else and there's another Warrior of Light, and the only reason we can find them or, like interact with them is because we go, that's what I would do. If I were them, I would do this. So I'm going to go there, and they'd turn up being there. And that's another like Warrior of Light to Warrior of Light kind of thing. Or watching them do all of these fetch quests or things like that. And you're like, my goodness, like your character is like, no, why are you doing this? Or
I feel that, bro.
It's really crazy the amount of detail they put into stuff. I mean, with the design of a modern MMO, right? It's very, like, people will say handholdy, right? But you think about like Heaven's Word, and like between all these different missions, like Tataru's wearing like different clothes for like no reason other than like, hey, it's a thing that we did because why not? Like, and it's just it's little things like that, and there's not a lot of them, right? But having that, I think, is really cool. Just to, these little kind of extra, like, I wonder if somebody, if they would go over, oh, they're right there. They got some bubble text and everything. Okay, cool. Awesome. So.
Yeah, I would love it too if they actually, and this is the thing that I don't know what they're going to do, right? Because we've been talking a little bit about, I guess, the possible true identity of the Warrior of Light. Again, sort of being vague for people who've completed it, you know what we're talking about and all that good stuff, right? But I mean, if there is some sort of, I don't know, reunion of those different components or those other characters that could lead us to almost having our own engagement with the ancients and the world of the ancients, and even getting something that'd be like playable memories would be so cool. And like, if you could make some choices in there that would, even like just let you kind of feel as though, oh yes, this was my character and like this is who they might have been, or like how things might go. I think that would be really neat. Now, like, I don't know if they'll do it per se, because we had all these crazy theories about like the new dungeon. You guys remember back in the past, we were like, maybe it's like we go back in our memories and then you're like back, and they didn't. And I think it makes sense not to, because it is kind of tough to put in, but at the same time, it would be so cool. And if that gave you like the choices you made and those sort of little side things gave you some additional dialogue with like the future Ascians or things, or like choices you'd made there, that would be so cool. I would love that.
And
they could use the Echo for that.
Well, and I think there's an opportunity, like, reusing content aside, right? Yeah. Like, they could totally like role play us as somebody in the Aetheryte dungeon and tweak a couple things in the instance here and there. You know what I mean? Like, that could totally be a thing.
I would love to see them to give us, more feeling that it is our Warrior of Light, to cast us back into Heaven's Word or something, the Echo, and see ourselves do something, and then we get to respond to it. Like, we get dialogue choices like, oh, right, like, why did I always did that? Or, like, I shouldn't have done this, or let you respond to them.
Or alternatively, that's a really good way to be able to retcon something if they need to. I mean, hey, remember when this happened?
Yeah. I mean, you could just
thought it happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You thought it happened this way, but, via the Echo, you can see the other side of it.
This is what actually happened. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I can, like, going back and like looking over the original question here that Enya sent in, I can definitely see how, like, compared to the Scions, for example, the Warrior of Light has had a journey, right? Because when you do start out the game, I mean, you really are a baby. Like, you're a baby adventurer. You turn up on a caravan. You're like, hi, do you have any work for me? And, then you do just garbage stuff for a while because you are like a baby adventurer. So getting to the point where people do recognize you, and obviously, like, you've done all of these things, there is a journey there. But I do agree that, like, compared to some of the very scripted narrative arcs of the Scions, it doesn't feel as much like one, because I think they want to let players have a freedom to engage with it or like not however they would care to, as opposed to being like, and then this is going to be so dramatic and sad for the Warrior of Light, and then this thing, like, so we just get these few choice moments where maybe things happen to NPCs around us or stuff like that then we can respond to, but it's not always like a very intense emotional full circle arc kind of deal for the actual Warrior of Light themselves, because they are more the character or the players than they are, like a scripted journey that this scion is taking to come to a new place, and this is the place they're going to arrive as a character, like like Thancred, sort of letting go of Minfilia and coming full circle and accepting this new person into his life. Like that's a very scripted arc for him versus a player character who could have any number of choices as to how they feel about things. But all of that said, I mean, I do think we could see some more of that and not suffer for it, if that makes sense,
Yeah.
Like, we definitely got more in Shadowbringers, and I think it's something they have considered, and they've been dabbling, like, with Beast Tribes. What if we do give branching quests, which is Fusion's least favorite thing in the whole world?
I hate it. I absolutely hate it.
But for me, I'm like, oh, that would be kind of fun. And then there'd be more replayability on all characters. And like, so they're definitely considering it. And I hope we do get more choices and more agency to some degree.
But canonical choices.
Yeah.
Canonical choices.
It's hard. But Fusion, I mean, did you like the way that they handled the like the job quests and those optional, like you get, if you do all of this and you get that like meta quest, you get this optional person you can speak to. Like, did you enjoy that, or do you feel like that still
I thought that stuff was cool, and I'm still very much like working my way through some of those job roles, but like I thought that was fine, and I don't feel like there's a difference between choices and talking about what's canon, and then there's I just simply haven't done this quest yet. Huge difference for me. So it's like, oh, this character died, oh, this character lived. What? That's huge. Like that's a big like, please don't do that anymore kind of thing. But like, doing quests and it's just like, oh, I just haven't gotten to this, but it still happens the same for everybody. That's fine.
Yeah,
but it doesn't happen the same for everybody if you haven't done the meta quest of all the jobs.
Right, because that night, that visit could be, because each one picks someone different. So which one is the
but you're still able to choose from the more or less from the same pool, right? Like you're not gonna have something that's like uniquely different from one person. It's like, okay, you get to talk to like one of these 5 people. Like it's nothing super crazy to me. Like that's fine, and I think that choice is fine. Yeah.
So
all right.
That makes me think of. Oh, you go ahead.
No, you.
That just makes me think of just like sandboxier games. That's not a word, but it is now, I guess. They have this feeling of, if I didn't do it, it would still happen, right? Like, is that what you're saying there, Fusion? Like, if I didn't do that, healer quest, that's fine. It still did happen. I just didn't choose. I didn't do it. It's still a thing. It's not a choice.
If I were to level up White Mage and do those quests, they would still happen the way that they would if anybody else did them. For me, dude, Eureka is dead. For somebody else, they're around. Like, that's a big difference there, and that's the kind of thing that bugs me. I mean, similarly, like you have the they're not Keychern on the first. They're crap. The guys. Yeah, I can't for whatever reason. So like they changed that a little bit. Like, so it's, you basically interpret the history of them, and like you get that visual representation in the their area, and it's like, all right, like that doesn't bug me as much. It still bugs me a little bit, right? Because we don't know what their canonical history is. But it's somewhat less impactful than like, is this person alive or dead? Like
Kitari.
Oh,
that's right. That's right. Okay. I couldn't. It's been so long since I've been done with those for months. Yeah.
Yeah.
The rats, the cute rats.
The little cute
Yes.
guys.
Yeah. Yeah, it is interesting because this is just like a big dilemma, I think, and especially in MMOs where a lot of times your protagonist can just be the most boring character. Just straight
Yeah.
up, you know? Because again, like we were saying, there's this idea of like we don't want to prohibit anybody from engaging with the story, but you know, we also want them to still have like a rewarding arc. So there is constantly this issue. And like we've seen, for example, like WoW really deal with this. Like, oh, well, this player character has done all these massive things, but for like a long time in the expansions and WoW, this is one of my biggest issues. You still felt like the grocery boy. Like
Mhm.
you show up and like nobody acknowledges you. There's like all these heroes and they're like, yes, we are heroes. Oh yeah, grocery boy is back again. Yeah,
Yo,
he
that
saved the world
that
last
feast ain't gonna prep itself, all right?
I
Mhm.
know. So like that always like sort of felt like the case. And then you got to Draenor, which was its own sort of special can of specialness. But like they decided at last, you know, oh, we're going to actually give the player character a title. We're going to give them responsibilities in this world. We're going to give them a camp. We're going to give them a fortress. We're going to give them all this stuff that they can upgrade and do. And on one hand, I loved it because I was like, oh, I'm not grocery boy anymore. Like I finally have a real place in this world. But on the other hand, it presented all these other weird issues with like, you know, you had like a solo instance that nobody else could come into that was like your fortress
Mhm.
and like all these different things that just caused these like weird dissonant issues or like weird slow mini games and tasks and stuff where you were sending people out. So it's kind of tough because like you do want your character to feel important. You want them to feel like they have a personal journey, but you also like have to leave room for it to be an MMO and for the story to be able to breathe and like mechanics to still sort of work around that and negotiate for there being, you know, thousands of warriors of lights, millions of warriors
You,
of
you
lights.
need to be able to let the player upgrade from grocery boy to like assistant caterer.
Exactly.
Yes.
It's not like a game like Zelda or any other game where you're the one protagonist who doesn't talk. It's just
Yeah.
one character. In Final Fantasy, like Rook said, it's 5 billion thousand characters.
Yeah.
So they want to leave it a little bit more ambiguous. I think bringing up Zelda, I think it might be interesting if they were to add little like extra sounds that you make during the
Mhm.
cutscenes. Doesn't have to necessarily be a real voice or
I
even,
mean,
like, a real
we have
word,
an
but, like,
entire
that'll
cartoon
sound.
with a fully voiced Link, so
It's-
I mean, yes, but like if something happens where your character goes, "Whoa," you just don't go and like lean
Yeah.
back. Your character might actually go, "Ah."
Yeah,
Yeah.
using the battle sounds that you pick, you know, because you
Some
pick a
of it.
voice.
Yeah.
Or
I
even
mean,
like I even like it when they, I mean, your character, even though it seems silly, even if your character's just like, sometimes
Mhm.
I'm like,
sorry, Rook,
well,
are
at
you
least
muted? I can't.
like at least they're actually talking or engaging. And what's funny is that I feel like this is the most noticeable when they give us, okay, like it's the big heroic moment and every like all the scions or whoever's with us, they give their big speeches and it's so rousing and it's so exciting. And then you get to your character and there's always a choice. Either you get to like kind of pick some dialogue and you're like, and then everybody in the crowd is like, yay! Or you just stand there and they're like, would you like to say anything? And you're like, and like that, it's a weird balance because it feels like the high point of a lot of those narrative moments should be focused on your character.
Hmm.
But because your character is unvoiced and they know that, they tend to push
Mhm.
the focus off on an NPC that can do a dramatic monologue. So like you kind of get taken out of the spotlight in a weird way in certain moments where you're like, my character would really like to have a voice in this. And
Mm.
so it is like the unvoiced thing is kind of weird and kind of tough. And like, of course, they're trying to negotiate all of this. And I don't usually have a problem with unvoiced, but I think they're still trying to sort of figure out how they do that without compromising like dramatic high points,
Right.
if that
Mhm.
makes sense.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think in that kind of vein too. I mean, one of the things that it's one of those things like we all notice it. Like you have a cutscene, our character reacts, and it's like one of like 4 different emotes.
Yep.
Like add some more emotes, add some variety. Like if you used in the last like 5 MSQ quests, don't use it again because boy is that repetitive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what?
Yeah.
I've just sort of realized that really amused me was the latest stuff in Shadowbringers that actually does happen to our character, where we're wandering around having to collect blank.
Mhm.
Everything you do in Shadowbringers that is focused on your character, the Warrior of Light, makes everyone else look really stupid. Like,
But everybody else is really stupid.
I don't know. It makes the NPCs seem really unintelligent, or like, why would you make that choice? That doesn't make any sense. And why isn't that an option in the game where you can be like, hey, that's really dumb. Why are you doing that?
Yeah. I think that they could use our expertise a little bit better, because apparently, we're the Warrior of Light. We have fought so many world-ending catastrophes. If there was a point where they were like, okay, we need to do this, how should we do this? And you pick, but the end result is you win in the end, but you pick, oh, I'm going to send Alice over there because I think she's better over there.
Mm-hmm.
And you get little cutscenes of what you chose. The result is going to be the same, but how you got to it is different.
Yeah.
Or, like you could be like, oh, I'm not very good at tactics, so why don't we let someone else do it? Like, so you could give the choice of either, no, my Warrior of Light is a commander, I'll tell them to go here, versus, no, I don't know what to do.
And meanwhile, I'm in Eden like, don't channel Shiva. What the hell are you doing? And they go and do it anyway and just completely disregard my opinion.
Are you a moron?
Yeah.
I know. Like, that was ridiculous. I did really like it because I think Guild Wars 2 has been experimenting a little bit with this in some of their most recent patches. So like we have this map recently that it's like a civil war. And so your character, who is this commander, is kind of embroiled in the midst of all of this. And you have these players on your side that are sort of in the divide of this race that has like fractured and is sort of warring with itself. And as you kind of go through it, you learn about like, each of these different leaders and what they've been doing on the map and in the zone, and like what their strategy is and how they're combating it. And you can like kind of ask people about like, oh yeah, well, how is that working out? Or what are we trying? Like, what's our goal on this? And then there are these key junctures where you get these dialogue options and you would legitimately have to think, because somebody will say to you like, okay, well, we need to accomplish X, but from what you've learned about all this stuff and your own expertise as a commander, whose strategy do you think we should go with? Do you even know the strategy? Like, were you even paying attention to the different strategies? Do you know these characters? And while we don't quite know yet, like exactly how the scale of those choices will pan out, and kind of like you were saying, it still ultimately essentially leads us to the same general events that are occurring. But there are like these nuances that can kind of happen around that, and that may change the direction of certain strategies, efficient, whether or not this really worked or didn't work or things like that I really found gratifying from that standpoint of, yes, like I am a character that has expertise. Why would you want me to just go pick 5 flowers? You've got like 20 people sitting on their butts in the corner. Like, just go make them pick the 5 flowers.
Because they know that you'll pick the best flowers.
Yes.
It would be more work. I think that's the bottom line for the dev team.
Sure.
That would be more work for them.
I think it's one of those things in narratives, and we see it in a lot of really popular fiction like Game of Thrones and Expand. The Warrior of Light is a perspective. It is your perspective, and it is an important one, but you should be able to pick where your perspective is. So like everything is happening the same, but since I am a healer, I picked to be with them, so I saw it through with them. But if you did it again and you said, I am a melee, I'm going to be on the front line, so you saw the battle from the front line perspective. Like just little things like that, that my Warrior of Light is a caster, so I'm in the back, or whatever. And then with these group of characters, but everything happened. You just saw a different perspective of it because you picked something different. But it's hard to do because how many perspectives are you going to make?
And I think talking about different perspectives too, I mean, we have that thing again. It's giving us something more than just the silent protagonist, right? When we do like the role play events, right, where you go and play as whatever his characters are, and so obviously it's not your character, but it's you in the game with a character that usually is voiced, has the personality, them and stuff. And so giving that to us, I think every so often as well, kind of helps to break up any like monotony that people might feel from that.
I would like to see a lot more, role. I think role play. Maybe you're right. Maybe that was part of their solution. They were like, well, it's kind of boring being you and you don't get the talk. So maybe we'll put you into someone who has more of a personality. Who knows?
It's It's kind of boring being you.
And I am
it also facilitates the story outside of the player's reach, right?
Mhm.
Like
Definitely.
things that are happening that we need to know, but that like we don't necessarily have a window into, you know?
Yeah, and I'd be curious to see what the kind of the workload, like the resources, the costs are between like like an echo cutscene versus like a little role play chunk of gameplay. Because I mean, I can remember back in like Stormblood, we had these random like one-off cutscene shots of like of Garlemald, and like yeah, like it was Garlemald, but it maybe wasn't like a really finished looking Garlemald. It was just like this is all they're gonna see Garlemald like, and so to get something like that bit with Ascension when you're actually like running around in the building like that was really cool. And I would assume for stuff like that, those are potentially areas they might reuse. So it's maybe the upfront cost is high, but in the long term, like that's gonna save them money for stuff. So I don't know. I'd be curious to get a little more insight on that. But
I do actually really love, now that I think about it more, Aldino, your idea of like having different perspectives, possibly of like sections of the MSQ, depending on what like your character chose. Like, and this would be so hard for them to do, but like thinking about our job quest from Shadowbringers, right? Like if you're playing through that main story quest and you reach a juncture where they're like, hey, well, at this juncture, what you determine will be sort of like the role you'll fulfill for like the next X amount of quests or whatever. So that like the job quests were actually integrated into like the events of the MSQ. I like they are they're tied in Shadowbringers, and if you do all of those job quests, you do actually unlock like a meta quest that has some like cutscenes and things that are like really cool additional lore to Shadowbringers. But it would be kind of neat if you could like actually just have it all be like streamlined. So you could say like, yeah, in this battle or in this thing we're doing or in this whatever, I want to go in as a healer and I want to be supporting. Like this is my expertise as a warrior of light, so I'm going to heal. Or I want to be on the front lines, or I want to be, and then you would actually like play through a different perspective. And like you said, the events could also be the same, but like there might be different like narrative high points that would kind of suit that style of character a little bit more, like some dialogue options or some things that could happen where like you save somebody's life in this crucial moment as a healer, or like you get this cool cutscene where you're like actually doing like life-saving work over a character, and then like if you're on the front lines you get some epic moment where you're like bashing your way through. Like that would be really fun and still give you a sense of that character. And like in Stormblood, they did give us a few little cutscenes and things where they like recognized that you were a healer or things, but to actually kind of integrate those two things would be really fun. And then with New Game Plus, you could just go back and replay, and it wouldn't be like you were locked out of anything. You could just go through it. Like I think that would be a lot of fun.
My biggest concern with something like that would be looking overall for cost, resource, budget. What did they then take away from? Because we had the role quests with Shadowbringers, and they were really good. Again, I'm still going through them. But then you also had the one level 80 job quest. And they were very templated. They were very copy paste for a lot of them. They were not great. And so there's always that balance of, okay, we could make something really great over here, but then what about this other stuff that we want to do too? It's kind of.
I'd be fine if they scrapped any like those quests were they just didn't even matter. I haven't even done like half of them, and I've done all the role quests for Shadowbringers, but like I was so underwhelmed by those little like 80 caps for the quest. Like
they were terrible.
Scrap that and give me something where it feels like this job that I picked is doing something iconic in the story. Like I wouldn't mind at all.
Let me teach the new summoners to summon Phoenix, or at least the ones that could.
Well, and it's hard too, because like obviously with if you integrate them into like a new MSQ, like there's something to be said for that, but also like the relationships with characters you have for your job quests, I think is it's more of that kind of side content that I don't know. I would rather see that stuff emphasized more. Like if they need to somehow weave it into like a role quest, but include more of like the job quest NPCs or something, like that's fine. But I think we need to eliminate like the high quality and the low quality of like the job progression story stuff. Like I think there's such a huge gap between like the one for Dragoon. It was just like, oh, like we need to remember Nidhogg. Nidhogg wasn't all that bad, and like they didn't even use animations. It was like a static image of the model of Nidhogg just kind of like moving around. It was terrible. It was terrible. Like it looked like, yeah, it was not good. And so it was bad.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know where I was going with that other than it was not good.
I was trying to remember.
I was gonna say that well, I do really like the idea of being able to pick your actual place on whatever battlefield. I think that they would probably have a huge influx of complaints from people like, I want to do this one and this one. I didn't get to see all of them. I don't want to have to play through it 5 times to get all of the details. So I think that that's a really like
I think the idea of designing content to be repeated in New Game Plus, that's not a good idea. I agree. I think there would be a lot of complaints about that.
I have to agree and disagree because I've experienced this in Guild Wars 2. So like the base game of Guild Wars 2, depending on what race and then also a variety of different background factors that you choose, you have a different trajectory, like a different opening story that you play through for every single race, every single character. And you meet different NPCs that you might then have like a more personal bond to, you might get additional lore from, you might have like all these different things with, right? And when I first started playing the game, I didn't totally realize the full depth of that. And while ultimately all the stories do end up branching into the same, like they do come through where you end up at the same endpoint, right? In that core game. I found that the community has actually responded to it in a way that is like, it has way more replayability because people want to make characters or they want to do that so that they can go through and like if they're a lore oriented person, they can get that lore. And if they're not, they never suffer for it, right? Because they probably chose things that they wanted anyway that were sort of tailored for them, that they were like, yeah, I like being a melee or I like being a whatever. So, and I like this story background or whatever it was. But I think with something like New Game Plus, while I don't think just designing for New Game Plus is a good thing, the fact that 14 is a game that lets us play every single role, that now has a New Game Plus feature, like all of those different things are really unique to the game. So if they gave us some reason to like give more weight to those new features and give you
and that's that, you're not wrong with that either. I mean, it's definitely a unique thing that not, I can't think of any other MMO right now that has a New Game Plus. So to like, it's one of those things, like as soon as I said like don't design the content to to use it, but also like I could see them doing it. Right. Yeah. So
one thing is they have in the past said, okay, so to back up a little bit, I personally would like that. Like the Kitari thing, I was on board with having different paths. I don't personally mind that. I think it's great, especially if it's tailored to choices that you've previously made with your job or whatever in the game. But in specifically the 14 community in the past, we've had people that were complaining about Savage, for example, or actually at the time it was normal rating, which is now kind of Savage rating, was the only one that had the story, and people that didn't want to do rating never saw that story. So they kind of, well, there was an outcry really from people who wanted to see that story because it's a great story, but didn't necessarily have the ability or desire to do that content. And so they adjusted it so that everybody could see everything in the next expansions to come. So I think that they probably are already in the mindset that they should make everything as available to the populace as possible because of that reaction back then. If they wanted to get dangerous and try it out, I personally wouldn't mind, and I think that there would be plenty of other people that also didn't mind. But I think as a community, probably have to put that out there, like, hey, it's okay to try this if you wanted to.
Yeah. I mean, that's the great thing, and I've said this before. It's difficulty aside, being able to try content is always something I feel like Final Fantasy XIV has done well in most regards. Even like you're not, you can do Party Finder for Savage or whatever, but you can easily queue into like a normal mode, right? It's not like Destiny 2 where it's like, oh, you want to raid, you need to either have like a pre-made group where the game doesn't have tools to do that, or you need to use like a special ticket thing and you need to be on voice comms. It's a terrible system. But Final Fantasy XIV makes things accessible, and I think that's really important.
they learn the lesson from looking for raid in WoW. Even though there's less story in WoW raids, everyone still wants to see them, and so now you can just queue up for them. It's not the same version. It's much easier. It's it's a bouncy castle, but whatever. That's fine. You still got to see it. You got to see the boss.
But do they make you take your shoes off?
I don't know.
see-
I don't think I would take my shoes off in like Nyalotha. There's so many tentacles and squishy things. I don't want to walk on them.
Oh, geez, no, gosh.
No,
Uh-uh.
that's
I do see
awkward.
here in the chat, Isaac says, there's
Mhm.
definitely more of a focus on character identity in Guild Wars 2. I think that some of the budget of 14 that gets pushed over to some side stories and stuff floating around in areas that most folks never even touch could 100% be redirected to areas that should get more focus.
Mm.
I can see that, and
Yeah.
especially when it comes to like character identity again. There's so much content in 14, and like that's honestly what I love. Like I love the storytelling in 14. Like any references or comparisons I make to any other MMOs is just because I think it's interesting to see how different MMOs are answering this same dilemma, like across the board. Like how do we do this or create this? And everything kind of has its pros and cons, right? Like 14 has an amazing story, and I love all the side content and story that's out there. But kind of like we were talking about, yeah, I do think there are sometimes like those 80 bonus quests, they really felt more to me like well, here's the last time you're going to see these characters and things, because we're not going to do every single job has their own quest anymore because we can't do it and there's too many jobs. So this will be the last thing you get for the current max level jobs. And from here on out, we're going to be doing something more like role quests as opposed to job quests, which again, I don't mind. I just think that it's going to be one of those things where like the job quests in 14 and talking about like having interest in your warrior of light, right? Because that was kind of the question. Like, is the warrior of light boring? And how do we kind of foster this connection in game to make them interesting, right? I think one of the things I always heard about those job quests is that some of the job quests just did not feel iconic to the job at all. Like you get one and you're like, oh great, I'm warrior, so this should be all about like my inner beast and like release, like how I'm like trying to rein in my own power so that like I don't hurt anybody, but then I can use it to protect people. But like a lot of times the writers could do anything from like, yes, let's make it iconic, to I don't know, make it like a funny thing about this guy over there who's funny. And it didn't always feel like it was saying something about your character as a reflection of that job identity. And even in Shadowbringers, I mean, those role quests that we had also did not feel focused on our character and their role. It felt more like, here's a piece of lore that's important and like a connection to our understanding of Ardbert and his, group and the things that led up to what happened in Shadowbringers. But like, it's not about you being a caster. It's not about you being so like, I think if they did give us something where those role quests, kind of like you were talking about, Aldino, where they tie a little bit more into our personal journey, or there's something within them where it really feels like the focus is on your character, their identity as that thing, and like how that affects stuff, it would also give us just a little bit more personal, unique flair, because like the classes do have a lot of flair, but we don't always get to really, really identify with that.
Yeah.
Oh, the face you just.
Yeah. I mean, I'm talking bad about the summoner end cap, and it's probably one of the better ones because you actually go someplace and do something and actually get a cutscene with an important person that no one else gets to see, But then it just kind of ends, because it was the one quest you have. So like for me, the end cap quest, if it is and now we're never going to see these characters again, I'm like, you should not have made this quest the way you did, because it just kind of leads into the, hey, you're a resource to train these people, right? Yeah, cool, bye. Till next expansion. Great, awesome.
That was my issue, like with Dragoon. It's like, hey, so like we had that whole expansion pack where like Nidhogg was the bad guy, but things happened and he was understandably angry. So like we should just take a second and think of Nidhogg. And I'm like, what? Like, no, why is this a thing? And then it's just like moving images. Like it's not even like animated models. It's like a puppet show. Like it was so bad.
Like how much cooler would it have been if you had somehow, I don't know, like tapped into I don't know, Estinian's memories of Nidhogg or something, and like had a
Mhm.
conversation with him or something, or like talked to Hraesvelgr, who like you then through a conversation
Right?
have
Where's
this
that
like
inner monologue during that
discussion.
last fight where he's like, "Yo, Astidian, sorry I made your armor like all red and bloody and stuff. Like I'll pay for the dry cleaning, but also we need to fight these guys right now because this is like the penultimate battle. So, but
Yeah,
I'll pay
something
for the
that would
bill.
have
It's
been
fine."
Yeah.
something that would have been a like more, I guess, again, like more of a personal story arc where you're like, well, what is the coming, like the full circle of Nidhogg? Perhaps it's that although he was consumed by wrath, originally it came from a place of love.
Right.
Great. So like let's make a quest that gives you that mini journey where like you realize and you can finally truly put to
Yeah.
rest
That was
Nidhogg's legacy.
Maybe they
Like
felt
Yeah.
like they were
cool.
beating a dead horse with that though, because
well.
that was
I
the big
I think
point of Heaven's Word.
Mhm.
right. The issue I think is the writers were like, okay, and not to bash the writers, like some of the writing in Shadowbreak was
yeah.
amazing, right?
It's incredible.
But it's like, okay, we are going to let you have one job specific quest, and this is the budget for it. And then like I think it gets even worse when you do multiple end cap job quests because you get to see it's very patterned. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
here you are. Oh, you were on the first? That sounds crazy. Here's what's been going on with us. And it's very like just point, done. And it's just like, why even bother at that point? Like it's I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel
Shiny
like you
things
either
in
Mhm.
chats made a point. They probably don't want to put too much into these pointless side stories that no one will do. And a bunch of us have already admitted that we haven't done the 80 quests. So that's a good point.
I mean, it's true, but I think that if something is good, players talk about it. I mean, think about how many people have picked up Dark Knight just because they heard
Yes.
that the job quests were the best quest in the entire, like some of the
Right.
best writing in the game. Like, if something's good and it shines, people will do it. Manderville, same deal. I mean, that's a whole quest chain. That
Where the
really,
hell
I mean,
is he? We're a month out from 5.3. We haven't seen him for like years. Where is this guy?
Yeah.
I don't know if you heard, but there's a pandemic.
It's that.
Wow. All right.
He got sidetracked.
all
I
of
don't.
this to be said,
Was not expecting
I
that
wanted-
response.
I wanted to just circle back to what Zen said earlier because obviously we talked about all sorts of things like places we think they could make the quest stronger to give you more of a personal connection, places that Shadowbringers I think really excelled when it came to communicating a little bit more about the Warrior of Light, all those different, like there's a lot of things that we kind of covered in all of this. But Zen, I wanted to circle back to what you said about roleplay because this is something that like people don't think about a lot, but like when it comes down to it, like we were saying in MMOs, your protagonist is always going to have to kind of one size fits all, right? In some sort of way. And how you try to give players variance within that is great. And there's ways to push it and talk about it and discuss it and customize it a little bit more. But like, of course, it's going to kind of come down to the fact that ultimately one size fits all. You got to have this thing and it's got to happen and all players need to be able to do it. But roleplay, while a lot of times people, I mean, even if you don't role play with other people, but you have your own headcanons or like you go back through quests and you're like just thinking about stuff or like you are actually actively role playing during our, for example, pandemic delay, like there's all this time that we have in game and there are so many people who are writing really incredible narratives and stories and re-envisionings of things and like using what's in the game as a creative jumping point to kind of like jump off and start sort of envisioning their own things. Like this is not going to be for everybody, but if you find that you do like want more of a connection, I usually encourage people to like try some role play because before you know it, the weight of what you've experienced outside of what the game can provide you, even like in the time and resources that they have, then only enhances your experience and connection as you continue on in the game. And I think that's a really fun thing to kind of do on your own to supplement it. If you are finding like, oh, well, maybe this character's a little bit boring to me now, but you can find ways to make them interesting and then still have their journey make sense to you, which is really, I think, fun.
Yeah. All right. So that's our first question.
Actually, really quick, if I can.
I was gonna let people. Yeah.
So when I do the main story quest, I really like. I don't think of that character, that Warrior of Light, as my character because I do roleplay. My character has a different personality, has different interests, doesn't do any of that stuff. Much more of a, you want me to save who? No, bye, right? But I do think of a couple of my friends' characters who I know are more heroic, so I like put little stand-ins.
Yeah.
And those characters also have different personalities, obviously. So for me, the Warrior of Light's never been boring because I'm always tacking on those little RP things, which, you know, not everybody has to or wants to do, which I totally understand. But for me, it's never been boring just because I do add my own little flair in my little head canon. Go on.
Okay. All right. Question 2. We're almost like an hour in. Question 2. My name is Panette. I just started playing 14 about a month ago, and I main White Mage. Trying to figure out if wands and shields are generally better than canes and staffs. Cursory Google searching reveals threads from 9 years ago.
They actually took wands and shields out for the most part. Like they're still there, but there's actually a portion in time where they were like, hey, you know that wand you have from like Garuda? You can turn that in for a staff, because really staves are your weapon now. So there's not really a difference. And once you get past a certain point in the game, they don't exist. You'll just be
that's all you'll be seeing anyway. So
yeah, it's not a choice of weapons. It's just that they decided to do staves instead of the wand and shield at a certain point.
It's one of those 1.0 remnants, right? Where they're like, we're gonna give people freedoms, and conjurers can equip heavy armor, and it'll be great.
Paladins used to be able to use a knife and shields. And then before we got right before we got rogue, I call it rogue. It is rogue. Anyway, right before we got rogue, they were like, we're taking the knives out. Don't worry about why.
Oh, these paladins are like, but my little stabbies.
Yeah. So if you had a knife left over from 1.0 as a paladin, you can still use a knife, but that is the only case.
Yeah. Usually good tip, as you are leveling early on, like as a new player, just above your character window, there's going to be like automatically equip best gear. What is it actually?
Recommended. Yeah.
Gear. So if you click on that, it will just automatically slot in whatever you have that's going to be like the best. And I mean, obviously, as you get later on in the game, if you end up in endgame content, there are more nuances with like specific types of substats that you might want or things like that versus just raw eye level. But early on, I would just say like hit that recommended gear button, and whatever ends up on there. Very early, it'll be probably some sort of shield wand, but eventually it'll turn into that stave.
And as a note on that too, it'll only grab stuff out of your armory chest for that. So if you have stuff in your inventory, make sure to get it into your armory chest, and then it'll run that. Because if it's just sitting in your inventory, it's not going to count that. It won't be able to see that. So
it is good to note that if you're having trouble getting gear at a lower level, the thing that you do want to concentrate on is your weapon, because that's going to make the most difference stat wise for what you can do with the abilities that you have. So if you have a choice between a weapon and a body piece, for example, choose the weapon if it's an upgrade.
Yeah, there's a hierarchy. You know, it's one of those things where it's a very specific question, so I know you had trouble, finding it. Just because, when someone's new, you think, and you're like, oh, well, maybe someone has a video about this. Probably not for that, but I definitely would recommend watching any leveling guides, like Shadowbringer's blank job leveling guide, if you can find it out there. At the very least, they'll be like, don't worry about that. Just keep going until you can get a stave or something.
There are entire books written about how to level certain jobs and stuff. So there's definitely those kind of resources are definitely out there. So
it may not seem like the best place to look when you're just like, do I use wands or, but some of that information might not be there. So if you don't find it,
get another 15, 20 levels on your conjurer white mage, and you'll find out that there's not really that option anymore. So
and don't be afraid to ask people, like if you go into a dungeon or something, or just out in the world, just in a shout, don't be afraid to ask people, because a lot of times you'll find people who are ready and waiting to answer these questions. There's also the novice network, if you want to jump in there. Sometimes the novice network is not as good as they'd hoped for it to be, but if you don't want to go in there's shout chat. There are people who will look at your shout and just straight up answer your questions. So.
Yeah, I mean, wherever you are, there will be a mixed response of people. Usually, though, there are more good people than bad, so keep that in mind. You may still get some bad experiences, but that's usually not the norm.
If you,
So,
for example,
with-
though, if you're in a dungeon, but since that's the first one I threw out, if you have a question about how you should handle something in a dungeon, like if something goes bad, everybody dies, you just don't be afraid to be like, hey, I'm new, I don't know what just happened, can you explain it to me so that doesn't happen again? Like, don't be afraid to ask.
Yeah, people are usually really amenable to it. And with things like the Novice Network is like a special chat channel that is specifically for like veteran players, mentors to help new players. You do need to get invited to it. So if you just go to like a major city center and you shout in the zone and say like, hey, could I get an invite to the Novice Network? Or if you look for anybody that has a little like mentor crown next to their name, you can also ask them to shoot you an invite. And they can invite you to that channel and you can stay in there and, hang out if you want. If you don't like it or you find that your particular server has kind of like a weird environment or a hostile environment, you can also choose to leave the channel. But it does give you like some good in the moment, just, hey, question, what? And then you can usually get an answer.
all right.
And hey, welcome to the game.
Yes, welcome.
Welcome to the game.
Woo. Our next question comes from Notra Lieber Edmund from Siren. They say, do you think we'll see an expansion of what goes in the Glamour Dresser and Armoire, changed to allow us to sort legendary weapons and more of the job-specific gear from hitting your job's max level breaks? Oh, God, I hope so. This has been an issue for me for a long time, so Aldina will be happy. I actually geared up my summoner this past week, and I've started taking my summoner up a little bit. And I was like, like I had the full Shire set left over from when I took my red mage up. So I'm like, I need a summoner robe. Like the Shire caster set's really nice. I need that summoner robe. And I knew that I had upgraded that first piece of AF so that I could dye it, but you can't store it. So I probably spent 10 minutes trying to find this damn thing through all of my retainers, because you can store normal AF, but if you augment it, you can't store it, and that's lame.
Research, man. Research.
I mean, there's that too.
Yeah.
Look, it just should not be as complicated as it is.
No,
It just straight up should not be. And like, I super appreciate, because we really do, when you look at it, have more raw inventory space, especially combined with saddlebag, especially combined with retainers, especially combined with wardrobe and glamour dresser and all these things now, right? Like, we have more raw inventory space than almost any other MMO gives you just right off the bat. But we also need it more than almost any other MMO, because almost nothing in the game actually goes into some kind of like just list or compiled sort of inventory. We don't have crafting inventory. You can play every job on one character, and those jobs all level differently, so you need gear at different thresholds for all of them. Like, we need that space. And dyes don't go into just like a dye thing, so they just sit. And there's so many different currencies.
And if you think if you think 14 is bad, play 11, where 11 has gear swaps for each ability that you use. Oh, you want to use a cure spell? Great. Let's swap in like an entire new set of accessories and armor.
No.
I will never.
And you can still play all the jobs. So that's a lot of inventory.
Yeah.
It's
I just
hard.
it's unfortunate, because it's kind of like what we were talking about with fellowships. It's one of those things where it's a system that we have that addresses something, but I don't feel like it really comprehensively deals with everything that we need, right? Like, I'm super grateful that we got the Glamour Dresser and we got all the stuff, but like, there was this idea that like all gear that you got from events and then all of your artifact gear, it was all going to be able to go in the wardrobe, but then half of it doesn't go in the wardrobe, and I can't actually, it does not go in the wardrobe. Even like the more recent with the bunny outfit or from one of the events that happened, I was like, are you kidding me? I can't put this in the wardrobe.
That was really weird,
Yeah.
because they've been very consistent for years.
Yeah.
As soon as you got that event thing, it could go in the armoire. That was already programmed in.
Or like worst case, like the patch after or something, right? Like, it was always pretty easy to get in there. Well, and then you have the Glamour Dresser, and then you have the Armoire, which are two separate things, but kind of not, because you can take stuff from the Armoire and use it in the like, it's so weird.
And got that weird spaghetti code, so you can only use the dresser in your in room. Who goes to your in room?
Right.
I know. And we don't have an object yet for the free, like for company houses or for your personal housing where you can use
I don't know if we'll ever get it, because that was one of the first things we asked Yoshida after they started talking about glamour dressers, I'm like, so when can I drop one of these in my house? And they're like, let me tell you something about coding.
Yeah.
So who knows
for
if we'll ever get
Allura-
it.
Yeah.
For Laura, for real in the chat, an armoire is a piece of furniture that you can either put in your personal /FC house, or it's also in the in-room,
Mhm.
where you can store certain event items and also original AF. It's
Yes.
very specific to that. It's just
It
a
was like the
different
first
form
step.
of storage. Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
it predates the commode, as I like to call it. I still have
Yeah.
never even tried to make a glamour plate. I should do that one day.
What?
Yeah, I've never even tried.
It took me a whole expansion. No, it took me a whole expansion to even try the glamour dresser until
What
I
is happening with all of your
What?
glamour games? What are you doing
I
with your
had listen,
lives?
I had 2 retainers just full of glamour stuff,
Yeah.
right? And at that point, I said, okay, I should try this other free inventory. So that is why I eventually tried it, because I didn't want to go to my in-room.
Yeah.
I still don't like going to my in-room. I liked being
Like-
able to go to my FC house, which I was probably already
Do you
at.
do you not want to be fashionable?
I
don't
am
understand.
fashionable more conveniently.
Yeah.
Do not understand any of the words that Nidra or Aldi
I-
have said to us in the last
wow.
5 minutes.
All right,
Usually,
Next week, the episode's just me and Rook. I can't talk to these two anymore.
Have fun editing,
We
buddy.
need to do some thinking. I maxed it out day 1. What
See,
is? And then
right?
I made glamour plates, and then I linked them to all of my gear.
It's too
I'm
much
at
of
the
a hassle.
point now where if I want to make a new glamour, I say, okay, which one of these do I need to get rid of? Which
Look,
you
it's
know,
too much of a
like
hassle.
Listen,
The initial import is too much of a hassle. Like all of the items that I have are on 5 or 6 different retainers. So I have to take them out into my inventory, then put them into the commode. No, I don't have time for that. I log on and I raid. I'm not going to log on and do that.
Aldi,
Takes
you
like
bring a
5
really good
minutes.
point. Well, but here's the thing.
All
I
of
will
the gear, it's going
actually.
to take forever.
I will.
well,
give
if you want
Aldi
all of
credit.
it, you just put the stuff in that you want to turn into glamour plates. You don't need to put all of it in there.
That's
Do you
all
really
of it.
need
That's why I
do
keep
you really
everything.
need your dated sheepskin boots? No.
yeah.
Yeah, if they have a good look.
One day you use them. for
Exactly.
glamour. Like, this is the problem, because honestly, like, you're not wrong, Aldino. It did take me hours the first time that I did it. Like, it was really annoying when I hit the cap. I got very annoyed. If I Fantasia or anything, the fact that I'm like, oh my gosh, now I have to take half this gear out again, and I gotta find stuff that looks good on this new race, and then I got put. Like, it is super annoying and dumb. Like, it should be something. Sorry, I
But
love
you know what?
Celsius, I love
End
it.
game
But,
takes time and dedication.
I mean,
I mean, you could just use it in your retainers and it's just as easy.
Glam is endgame, but why can't you click on an item and
Yeah.
then just say put in glamour, or, like, or whatever it is,
And
or
then-
even,
Yeah.
like,
What if you
even
want to take it out and actually use it as an item? Like, that's another problem, right? Because then I have to go back to it and take it back out and then equip it. Because none of my jobs are maximum. Like, I think Bard is still level 29. So if I were to throw all the aiming stuff in there, so it's not even a Bard, then I would have to take it back out to then level with it. Like, it's just not a good system. So
Yeah,
I just decided not to engage with it.
I just wish more than anything in the entire world that
Yeah.
it was just like when WoW did that update for transmog stuff.
Yes.
Where you
Mhm.
get, like, it's just a catalog, you know? And when you acquire that item, its appearance is just unlocked. And now whether or not you hold on to that item in your inventory is up to you, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Mhm.
maybe you keep it because it has whatever stats that are good for whatever leveling threshold. Maybe you don't. But, like, I would far rather just, like, have to deal with a smaller inventory for actual items, but have appearances immediately unlock when I acquire that thing, than I would have to deal with, like, well, now I'm gonna convert it into a thing in my wardrobe. Oh, but I'm full of things again. I guess I better go take it out. Okay, I'm gonna put
Right.
it in my bag.
Do
Like,
you-
it just it drives me
But
crazy.
but
You have to remove
programming.
the materia first.
I know.
You don't have to remove the materia first. Like, if you were to store something that you wore last expansion, do you have to remove the
Materia, I
first?
don't think matters. It gets deleted essentially,
It
but
gets
it does need to
deleted,
be repaired to max, which is also another stupid thing. Just
Right.
if you want it to be repaired, I'll pay the repair cost right there. Don't make me like take it out, run to an NPC, or take it out, repair it in there, and like just do it.
These are
It
all
doesn't
the
need to die.
Yeah,
So
that's
there's-
good.
And the one thing I also really like about it is you can, if you're like, I'm making a dancer glamour, you can tell it, show me only dancer things.
Yes.
Mm.
So that's
Yeah,
my
that's
favorite thing
nice.
about it, and also the fact that it's free inventory. Otherwise, I would still just be using my 2 retainers because I find it inconvenient to have to go to my in-room.
You only have 2
Yeah.
retainers?
2 retainers for gear. I have 7 retainers.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I have
All right.
5. I have 5. Most of those are housing items.
5, and all of them are gear, and I'm not kidding.
Yeah.
Every
Yeah.
So
single one of them is
most of mine are crafting materials.
Mine are all gear, like gear, dyes, currencies,
Yeah.
and furnishing.
tokens. Yeah, tokens.
Now,
Actually, all of my furnishings are in my house storage, but I
Mm.
have 5 houses.
now,
Yeah.
when you say currency, what do you mean by currency?
Right.
Currencies,
Totems.
including everything: totems, coins,
Books.
Yeah.
raid drops.
Because I have actual Beastman currency from 1.0.
Oh,
Still.
so does then. Or did you get
Yeah.
rid of all of it?
No,
You still have it.
I
I
still
will never throw
have
it away
all
just
of
in
those.
case.
Right? One day,
But
it's
if
coming
you
back.
right click and convert into currency, it does all fall back on the original design of.
Yeah.
And forgive me, I'm not going to go into it. I am a programmer. I have been one for 9 years. I have done it for video games, specifically for inventory in video games. Right? It was a bad decision at first, probably. And everything is stored as it's an object, and it has attributes, and that's cool, that's easy enough. But once you start putting other objects in it, like materia, and then you want to put it in a list and bring it back out, it's kind of weird. I know it's weird, but other games made the right decision at first, and then they had the system to do it. It's gonna suck. I don't. They're just gonna have to rip it up and redo it, or we're gonna have these half steps forever.
And look, they're never gonna do that.
Yeah,
So
it's not gonna happen.
Well. I wouldn't say never, because
Yeah.
I mean we have seen them do some pretty massive changes that for a long time I was like, they will never do this. I mean,
Mhm.
case in point, the fact that World Visit even exists now,
Right.
like I never thought that they would actually do that. Like that's huge. Let alone now that we're even sort of theorizing like maybe data center, but like that would be totally
Mhm.
crazy too. So like Notre, to answer your question in a long,
Right.
passionate tirade from all of us,
Mm.
I think the idea here is that we have a lot of half measures, just like Aldino,
Yeah.
like you were saying. We have a
Yeah.
lot of half measures. So just getting an expansion of the Glamour Dresser and the Armoire, especially as we get more legendaries, more relics, more artifact, more everything, more gear, more dungeons, more like it just is not a system that, like Aldino was saying, was created to be as forward thinking as it needed to be for a game that
Mhm.
has as many cosmetics as Final Fantasy XIV. And when we look at other MMOs, whether it's WoW or even ESO, that I mean, everything that you have just kind of like goes into this massive, account wide unlock where it's like, oh, I got all these great looks and these
Yeah.
recipes. I can use them on a whole bunch of stuff. Like, it's just not how 14 was designed. But I think it would be something that would be very worthwhile to tear it up and just redo, because it
But-
does create a huge problem and it does drive people crazy.
Yeah.
In that same regard, though, and again, I am not a programmer. I spent my last year of high school in C++ playing RuneScape. All right,
Yeah.
that's a whole other thing. But like with the way that the code and stuff works, so like if you have your character, right, it's wearing a glamour plate, so the item data is attributed to your character. That's not going to change if you just have all these things unlocked on your character. If you've like acquired the item, that item data is still going to be the same when you're going into an instance and stuff. So I don't know what the solution would be, because it's that resource cost for the server. I think that's the biggest issue right now, and I don't know, because you're still going to have that item data attributed to that character somehow. If anything, it's attributing more item data to your character. So I don't know.
It's where they have the divisions, I think, because in the in room you have access to some long-term storage that you don't somewhere else. I think is really the way that it works, because the Armoire was there to begin with, probably.
Yeah.
But there's like some in between, and it might be that storing all this as a list is cool, and then when you want to bring it back out, it just takes too long, or it is not always right. So you're like, I want to put this stuff on, And it's like, okay, but I have to load those items, and certain items just really don't work, and they haven't had time to fix the bugs. Who knows?
I definitely forgot that in the beginning, once you put something in the Glamour Dresser, you could not take it out again.
Yes.
Which is
Mhm.
actually, I think, why I initially never touched it.
Yeah.
Because I'm like,
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I
I was weary. I still played around with it, but I'm like, I'm not dropping like my Alexander stuff in there. Like, nah.
Exactly. And I think it's like the retrieval of data, or like data related to it, like the appearance and the actual item. I don't want to speculate. I do not work for them. Like I said, they could be doing something completely different, and I could be completely wrong. But there are other ways around it. Like they're saying that if they could get more data storage, maybe they could make it better. So they might not have to rip it up. They might just have to wait for technology to catch up so that they could brute force it,
Mhm.
Because that's what happened to WoW, I'm pretty sure. They got technology and they brute forced it.
Yeah, and it's that thing of especially with world visiting and stuff. And if we want to expand that more, you have to make a cutoff of what data comes over, because that's a lot of data to move, right? So there you go. But I mean, it's weird because this team will make big strides and big improvements on stuff. Like I was looking at some stuff for the patch, and I was like, oh right, we're getting flying in ARR zones. I was like, I forgot all about that. Like, sweet. But then this is also the same dev team that comes out with 2 new races, and they can't all wear hats. So they do cut corners when they can cut corners. So it's, I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
Got her.
I was ranting about that on stream the other day.
I mean, yes.
It's still a thing. It will forever be a thing.
Yep.
Sorry, Square.
Yeah,
At least you have some hats. I don't know.
it's not good enough. The thing is,
it's not.
It's not, like, it's not for a major MMO that has some of the most subscribers, out of, like, it's one of our top MMOs. Like, should not be a thing. If you're putting a new race in the game, it needs to have the same functionality and features as anything else you release. Or why did you release that race? I don't understand. But all of that aside, my own personal yelling aside, the game is so good. Like 14 is so good, and like I love what it does. Like I will never not love this game. But there are these things where, like, an older design that just was not quite anticipating what conveniences MMOs would have. It just, the UI and some of the stuff within that just got real goofed, and coming off of that 1.0 just got real goofed. So I know it cannot be easy for them to try and answer these questions, and they are always thinking about them. I mean, obviously we got the Glamour Dresser and we got Glamour Plates directly in response to something, but how they like adapt this to really make it a system that I think allows players to just engage with the incredible gear and designs and artistry and content that they've created, as opposed to like frustrating them and prohibiting them and confusing them and taking up way more time than it needs to. Like, when they actually do that, we have no idea, or how, because it is tough to also be trying to have an ongoing narrative and a new expansion on the horizon and be like, I guess we also need to completely overhaul all this garbage.
Right. It's all about balancing and, trying not to slip on dates. And I mean, it's making a game is intense, and making an MMO is even more intense, and making an MMO where most of your player base doesn't speak your language is, I don't even understand. Right? Like that. What?
Yeah. Okay.
So that would be our answer, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We actually answered the part you wanted.
Yeah.
I think it was in there somewhere, right?
Yeah, somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, I think if we don't see an overhaul, we'll probably, they might increase the cap and stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, the same goes for housing. I would love it if we had more housing furnishing slots. And if they fixed a whole bunch of the UI. I saw in chat people saying, like, why not please just make the things that people have to glitch for hours just actually a part of the housing UI? And I'm like, yes, please. I would love that. As somebody who's gotten really into housing, please, gods, please. Like,
people do some crazy stuff with houses. It's just
But think about how much more people could do if, like, it wasn't just trying to fight the system to trick it into doing what you wanted.
Put something in the air and turn it. That'd be so amazing.
Just put it there. It stays.
I don't want to put it on the floor and then put a rug under it and then put a loft under it and then the same loft and the same loft and the same loft and the same loft, and now it's in the air. And also you didn't put it up high enough, so it's on the ground again.
People. I mean, we a couple weeks ago, Sly, he's been on the show before. Everybody knows Sly. Had a birthday party, And so in this mansion, they had a dance floor, and it was actually all elevated. It's like you go into like a mansion, right? And it was just like up there. They had all these platforms. Like they just made like a completely new floor. Like, oh my god, I can't imagine how
like a dance floor and stuff. It was really cool.
Yeah, I can't imagine how long that would have taken it. It's crazy the things that people are able to do. And that's by like glitching stuff too. That's not even like
I mean, I'm hoping that if we don't get an overhaul, which is what's really needed, yes, hopefully we do get an expansion. But I mean, we'll just have to see. Notra, we don't really know, and until they tell us what's happening, we don't really have any idea what they're going to do. They surprised us with ARR flight, so they could surprise us with overhaul.
They could.
At the very least, we do know that they often go back and go, "Oh my god, what were we thinking?" And it may take years and years and years and expansions, but they do try and get to the stuff that they know isn't working.
Somewhere there's a team who works on like houses and storage and things like that, and they're just like, oh god, I can't wait to fix this. Like as soon as we have time, we're gonna fix it.
In the background.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and it's like we talk about talking about housing, like every so often, like we get that update where it's like, hey, there's this like furniture thing that we've been wanting for such a long time, and then like you figure out that like you can't really put anything on a loft, and you're like, why even bother?
Yes, you can.
I mean, if you
Not
you
legitimately.
know, right. Anyway,
there's so many guides for it. For those of you in chat and listening who are interested in these sort of things, just honestly Google it. It's all over YouTube. There are people who have made wonderful guides.
Yeah, we can work around it.
Yep. Our next question: what new crossover or collaboration events do you want to see happen in Final Fantasy XIV? Oh, so
next question.
we well, hold up. So we did do a show, and I was gonna bring this up. So, if you want to listen to what is probably one of the most nonsensical episodes of this show that has ever been done, go back and listen to episode 167. This dropped at the end of May. We had so many things. I think I was pushing for like a Seinfeld collaboration at one point. It's just
like, what is Seinfeld? How do you do that?
it was ridiculous. So definitely go check that out. It was a lot of fun to do. We had Ethis and Moose join us for that, so we could try and like justify all the completely stupid crap that we were coming up with.
The first episode that I got excommunicated from the podcast from because I didn't watch Seinfeld. I do remember that.
Oh, I haven't seen Seinfeld either.
Yeah, it was us that time.
Yeah, we were gonna get kicked out.
Yeah.
All right, I'm doing the show by myself next week. I can't. Oh my gosh! Wow.
Well,
FFXIV is now looking for new podcast members. If you would like to apply as part of Aetheryte Radio.
If you are hip with pop culture, let me know. God, this is like my 11th podcast when somebody admitted to never having seen Star Wars. Have you all at least seen Star Wars?
Yes.
Okay, that's all right.
I'm personally actually getting into the extended universe now, and I'm finding Star Wars more interesting than ever. So
old EU or current canonical EU?
I mean,
I don't know.
Oh yeah, no. Now you've lost it again.
You had me in the first half, Zen. Not gonna lie.
I started watching The Mandalorian, which everybody loves. So I think I get
current. That's current canonical EU. Back when the original movies came out. Okay.
Because I was told
we broke
Ahsoka,
Rook.
Yes, she did. Oh no, Ahsoka's gonna be in Mandalorian next season.
Yes.
I was like, I'm gonna go back and watch Clone Wars, like the series. So does that count as old? I think that's old.
So no. That's current EU canon. So
okay.
So back in
the old novels.
Back in the day when Star Wars first came out, there were all these side stories. Like a lot, there was like a crap ton of books and stuff that came out. Like Shadows of the Empire for 64. That's considered original expanded universe. When Disney bought Lucasfilm, all that was scrapped.
Yeah.
So now only stuff that Disney is working on with Lucasfilm, that's the new canon.
I mean, all the other stuff is still out there you can read, but
absolutely, yeah. And some of that stuff they're bringing back in. Yeah. So like there was
But technically, Clone Wars was canon and still is canon, so she's right technically.
So the
'Cause it was
No, that's what I was saying. I was saying
Clone
Clone Wars is canon, yeah. But then you also had like books talking about like Admiral Thrawn in the original EU. They actually brought him into current EU. They brought him into Clone Wars or Rebels, one of those. But then there's like a new book that brings him into the current. Yeah, I mean, there's anyway.
There's a lot.
The answer is
This
Star
isn't
Wars.
a Star Wars.
Star
Yeah.
Wars.
But
Got it.
at least you've seen Star Wars, so
Yeah.
Okay,
Oh, boy.
collaborations. I
Yeah.
got this. I want to see Persona.
Hmm.
I want to see.
ooh.
Mm, mm.
Mm. Mm.
I want to see like I don't know, maybe like some Chrono Trigger.
Yeah.
I want to see Chrono Trigger more than
Oh
I've
my
ever
God.
wanted. To see collaboration
Don't do
in
that. Don't do that. You are
You're
going to make people think that a new one
Yeah.
is going to be coming, and that's the last thing I think that Square wants
I
to
want to see Chrono Trigger collaboration more than anything in my entire life. And oh my god, the music would be banging. It would be so good. It would be so amazing. The story would be incredible, and every piece of gear and everything would be
You know,
amazing. That's
if I had to pick though, I think I'd rather have the Persona music.
wrong. You're wrong. I'm sorry, Fusion. You get
Wow.
off the podcast now. I'm sorry.
Wow. All right.
Chrono Trigger has one of the best soundtracks that has ever been made in a video game.
There you go.
It is incredible.
I'm not
It's
saying
true.
I'm not saying it's bad, but as somebody that has been playing a lot of Persona 4 Golden the last few weeks, Persona 4 and 5, their soundtracks are just amazing.
They are
absolutely amazing. I would rather listen to those over Chrono Trigger any day.
I am offended and upset, and I'm never going to be
Okay.
okay again.
All right.
I'm
Well,
just
it's
gonna say,
it's
go
been
with
so
it.
nice having you on the show
Been
for
really
this
great.
past year. I hope you have a great rest of your life. And
It's funny because I don't even I can't pick one or the other. It's like back when Brian was on and it was always like Fusion and Zen, and then I would be in the middle, or like Fusion and Brian and Zen, I would be in the middle. But yeah, I mean they're both good. I don't know which one I would like to see more. I'm a little bit afraid of Chrono Trigger because I feel as though that one's closer to my heart, and if they mess it up, I'd be more upset.
Oh.
Right?
I think the problem that Square as a company runs into if they do a Chrono Trigger collaborations.
Mhm.
So you guys are making a third one now, right?
But
Like
maybe
that's
they
the thing.
are,
They should.
and then it's amazing. I just look as somebody who played Chrono Trigger as an adult.
Mhm.
I didn't even play it great. I don't even have the nostalgia. I played it as an adult, and
Okay.
it has become one of my absolute favorite RPGs. Like,
Yeah.
I have never been so surprised by a game. It's just gorgeous. Like,
Mhm.
it's just unbelievable, and the sprite animation is just phenomenal, and the music. Like, I've listened to so many orchestral reimaginings of the music now. Chrono
Mhm.
Cinematic is amazing. If you haven't heard that one, like
Yeah.
it's just like what an incredible story that so many people now just don't know anything about. And like it was so creative and innovative, and like the branching plot line and like the different outcome, like it's just really neat. I think that would be one that would be super cool.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'd just like to see some more anime crossovers. Like we don't have any, but I just found out that like in Phantasy Star Online 2, people were able to get like Megumin explosions recently. And like maybe I want some Megumin explosions.
There would be some precedent for that because they did have that collab years ago when we still didn't have PSO2. They had what did they get? They got Odin. They can fight Odin in PSO2. So I mean, okay, if we finally got the other half of that, okay, sure.
Yeah,
why not? Why not?
Yeah, it's really hard because like Persona I can conceptualize really easy with all the stuff with Memoria or whatever it was. Like that's Persona 5. Enjoy. You're in someone's brain. Like you're in someone's memories. You're in someone's mind castle. Easy. Technology.
Memoria, did you mean Mementos?
Mementos? No, I mean in 14. What was the name of that instance that you fought?
It's
Oh.
Yeah. That's what I mean. They could use
Yeah,
that.
okay, I got you now. Yeah. It's close to Memento, so I was like, are you just not remembering the Persona thing? Or okay, we're good. Same page.
Yeah.
All right.
But like that's an easy way to get Persona 5 into this game. Done. Like that's it. You go into someone's memories, mind.
You gotta go
castle.
inside the TV. What's a TV? Oh.
Yeah, 4 is a little bit harder, but 5 is easier.
Do you have that random Omega furniture piece in your house? That's kind of like a TV.
Wouldn't that
the
be
gold
amazing?
saucer going the like
Only Taru-Tarus can fit in it though, so we're gonna have some issues with that.
Yeah, you just go into the level checker.
There you go.
things. I
yeah.
keep trying to think of video games that I'm currently into,
Mhm.
and the first one that comes to mind is Vermintide. But I don't know that I would want to see like Warhammer
Yeah.
crossed over with Final
That
Fantasy.
would be so wild. That would be
Yeah.
so weird.
Oh, I got your
We've already had
collaboration.
enough issues with moons.
Yeah.
It was a red moon, green moon. Let's pass. Let's not do it.
Or we talked a little bit earlier about being the errand boy.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Death Stranding.
Oh no. No, I
Just
don't
take
want it.
all these packages, manage your balance, don't fall anywhere, and you just have to deliver packages.
Duck game.
Look,
And you
Yeah,
get
I,
a little BB minion.
I think that Death Stranding was brilliant, and I've never seen a game that took something that as a premise sounds so terribly boring, but actually is incredibly engrossing.
And also,
in an
again,
immersive way.
soundtrack for Death Stranding. Amazing.
I mean, soundtrack is amazing.
Absolutely amazing.
I don't know if it would work at 14.
Yeah.
I don't know. I would like to see at some point some sort of all Final Fantasies event,
Sure.
which
Hmm.
that would be absolute mayhem.
We have that. It's called Tetramaster.
No, it's not good enough. What I wanted, like, you mean like a Dissidia crossover?
I
Yeah,
would like to be able to get some of the main heroines' outfits.
Yes.
Yes, the ladies' outfits.
Mhm.
Yes, from anything. I would
Mhm.
love that.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, it's very cool that we have, Cloud and Squall and blah blah blah. But where is like Beatrix or Quistis? Can
Yeah.
I get those? Thank you.
Yes.
Why is Quistis the one
Also-
you go to and not Renoa? I'm
Renoa sucks.
curious.
Because Quistis is a queen.
Yes.
Have you
And
seen
Renoa
her?
sucks.
No, I love Renoa too. She
Okay.
good too. She
Yeah,
got
you're-
doggo. You can have little doggo minion.
The dog is fine. The dog is great, but Renoa's like snore.
Yeah. I mean, I agree.
Quistis is a badass.
Quistis
That's
is really
why.
good. Yeah.
Quistis is the badass.
How about a Miyazaki crossover? Studio Ghibli.
Oh yeah, that'd be cute.
Okay.
He went away. Look
I'd be
how
down.
extended that trip away was.
I mean, we all love 8 here. But yeah, the waifus are going to be a point of contention. That's just the way.
On that note, I am super surprised we didn't get like a Tifa and Aerith costume when remake came out,
Yeah, seriously.
or anything for that. I
Yeah.
was very
Yeah.
surprised.
I
Yeah.
feel like they're gonna do a belated event on it, but I mean I have no idea honestly.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's weird because you have the Cloud costume, but that was like a veteran reward, and they don't really do.
Mhm.
When are we gonna get our next like subscription reward thing? Like what happened to that
Never.
idea?
No,
Or like a
continue,
mount
gone.
for like the last mount they did was that tiny underwhelming dog,
And-
and I'm so mad at him. He's cute, he's funny, but I was like, I'd been slaving away in the gold saucer, barely holding on to
Yeah.
my sanity to try and get that Fenrir mount, and then Fenrir's mount, and then when that dog came out, I was like, oh my god, it's like a fire version. I'm spared. Finally, I can use all
Yeah.
these feathers. And my Highlander looked absurd.
I would love to see them, and this is something I think when they announced Gold Saucer, I'm like they should just dump all these Final Fantasy character cosmetic stuff into Gold Saucer.
Mhm.
Like that's how you do it, right? Of course, now we have the Mock Station,
Yeah.
but I am surprised that we don't have more, and that we don't have any female ones, especially like all the character outfits that we've
All we have
gotten
is
are
Yeah.
yeah, that's it, lightning.
Lightning.
And even then,
We have
Dude one
Yuna.
then.
We have
Yeah.
Yunas.
oh,
from
Yuna and
the-
yeah, and
You're right,
Tidus, yeah,
you're
that's
right.
right, that's
that
right.
was-
But
that was FanFest.
those
too. That
those
was-
were
Yeah.
those were a little different because that was an event and that was FanFest stuff. So I would love it if they would come out, give us a Renoa to complement the Squall, give us like an Aerith to complement the Cloud, give us not Beatrice, but like a Dagger one to complement the Zidane, and then whoever the
Notice
female
that
protagonist
none
would
of
be
these
from.
females are the badasses. Just saying.
No, they're not.
I want
You
the
know,
badass ones.
Yeah,
I mean, I
they're just
guess-
not the second billing character in
I-
any of those
I
games.
get it.
Right.
sucks.
I understand.
It
It
sucks.
makes sense. Absolutely. But why? I want the badass ones.
Well, I'm surprised, honestly, that we don't have a Lulu outfit in game.
Yeah,
Like,
seriously.
that's one that seemed like an absolute no-brainer to me. I was
they
like,
Do they
I
wanna come back
I would love
armor?
to see how they do that outfit on a male character.
it
Give me-
would be amazing.
Yeah.
Give me a Hrothgar with the Lulu cosmetic
That's
on
my
it.
Could be
dream.
cool.
That's my
Right?
dream. I would love it. I mean, the wedding dress
Alternatively,
everybody now.
give me the Renoa costume and then a machinist gun that just looks like a dog.
Totally works. I think that's good.
Maybe have it bark when it shoots. Can we Square? Can we?
That would be so good.
Oh, man.
Zen is like, oh my god.
I mean, all I can think of when I think of that poor dog is Renoa's like, all right, it's time to have an attack. I'm gonna stick my fist up my dog's ass.
And then
There's a
shoot it
really
in and-
good. There's a really fun fan comic that I love. It's where she does like the Angelo launch or whatever, and then you just see them like splattered with blood. They're like, why did you think that was a good idea?
Yeah.
It's no good.
Oh, man.
But yes, if you want to hear more crazy collaboration ideas, episode 167, make sure to go and check that out.
It's a good one.
It is.
It is
It was
fantastical.
It was a lot of fun. Our last question here that we have is we are currently in the middle of a content drought with understandable circumstances. There are two things currently pushing me away. First, the lack of content, and two, 2020 has me depressed, so the things that I once enjoyed, I no longer enjoy. Are any of you feeling this at all? And what are you doing to stay engaged at this time? So, content it's rough because we are in a lull, and we're further out from the patch than we normally are because of the work from home shift. And a couple things that we've said before is there are a lot of things to do in this game. And it's probably very rare that you are going to be somebody that has completed absolutely everything that there is to do in this game. So in that regard, right, it's like there's always going to be something, right? However, even if there is something like there's just still a lot of stuff I haven't done, right? But for example, like the original like sightseeing logs, I could care less about those. I am not going to do those. So that's content I haven't done yet, but I don't care. And so in that
Those
note,
are actually the most trying ones, most difficult ones.
the original ones, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So like on that note, like you can take a break. It's okay to take a break. There's a lot of games coming out. And that have been coming out. I mean, it's totally fine to take a break and play something else for a little bit, and then come back with the patch. Yoshida-san has actually encouraged that several times over the past few years. So, I think that's definitely something to consider. You could also try like leveling different jobs if you want. Like I've recently geared my summoner. Boy, was that I haven't touched my summoner since the end of Heavensward. So I loaded it up, and oh my gosh, the amount of like crossed out abilities on my hotbar, and oh boy, has that been interesting. But yeah, it's stuff like that that I've been doing to try and keep myself engaged with 14. But I've also been like Persona 4 Golden just came out on PC. I've been playing a whole bunch of that with the wife. We've been enjoying that. GameStop had Persona 5 Royal on sale, so I picked that up too, because what the hell, why not? But then like Death Stranding is out on PC this week, Halo 3 is out on PC this week, Ghost of Tsushima is coming out, Last of Us 2 came out a couple weeks ago. Like there's so many other games that you can play too. So don't feel, I mean, obviously, budgets aside and stuff, maybe this is where your money is going and this is all you have. There's definitely still things you can do, but if you're not having fun, don't force yourself to do more, I think is also important. Like, it's keep your sanity in check as well.
I'm normally one of those players who plays the whole way through from patch to patch. And with this particular content lull, I have started playing other games. Don't feel guilty about it. Like I said, I normally don't take breaks from this game, and I'm not necessarily on a break, but I'm definitely doing less in it. I have completed the raid tier. I haven't completed ultimate. I can't find friends who want to do it. I have maybe like 2/3 of my static are like, yeah, and then the other two, yeah.
I'd get in there, Zen. Just
Alright.
yeah, but I had the same problem with my static, but I'd give it a go with you.
All right.
I started Alexander. We made it through the first phase, so I would maybe.
I mean, me too. All right, so I'm glad I said something. Anyway, apparently I'm playing Final Fantasy again. Never mind. No.
Talk to your friends, baby. There's something you can do
Yeah.
together.
Go figure. I was going to suggest crafting if you haven't caught up with crafting. Some old
Yeah.
stuff you could do. Someone in chat suggested Beastman dailies.
Mhm.
I personally kept up with those the whole time, so I am super done with those. But again, like end game content and certain crafting things, I haven't done all my crafting.
If you're kind of
they did
in
Yeah.
this state of mind where it's like I should probably log into 14, but I don't know what to do. Take a job that's not at cap and just run whatever like level equivalent Beastman tribe quest that you can do.
Yeah.
Like that's what I you know what I would do is I'd at least log in when I was like taking my Gunbreaker and my red mage up. I would just be like, well, you know, I should at least run dailies. They only take a few minutes, and that's a decent chunk of XP. So I might as well, you know. Obviously that, you know, it's not a huge time investment, so you go back to being bored pretty quick, but you know, it's something to do. Crafting again, that's a really great idea right now, especially with the break we have right now
all the relics
with Ishgard.
So if you wanna build up all your relics for the job,
There's a lot of stuff to try for in there. You can work on getting some of the other rewards from the Ishgard stuff. Gathering and Diadem is super easy. Gathering for the Beastman dailies now for Shadowbringers, like it's so easy to get this stuff leveled up, but it's also like super chill. Like if you want to do gathering and crafting, just hop into the Diadem, load up like yeah. I mean it's you can be very chill. Load up your Spotify, jump into Diadem for a couple hours, and then you know craft for another 30 minutes after that, and you'll progress quite a bit with all that stuff. So
but that's my main suggestion is crafting crafting relics, regular job relics, and then the other thing that I've been doing is ESO. I heard really bad things about ESO to start, but now it's really gone through a change, and I quite like it. You need mods. You absolutely need mods to play that game because there's some big quality of life things that are missing, like a mini map. It's very hard to play that game without a mini map. Look at your eyes. Fusion's eyes got so big.
How do you not have a mini map in 2020?
I play it with no mods, but people always lose their minds when they find out that I play it with no mods.
Right. I guess I've been spoiled by 14. There's a lot of excellent quality of life stuff in 14, and some of that stuff is missing in ESO, and I needed it. I needed it.
But it's much easier to mod ESO. Like
so much easier.
They have supported mods and stuff, so it's not like
right.
It's kind of like wow.
It's not illegal. Let's see what else. Oh, they have I think my favorite mod. Well, no, two. There's two of my favorite mods. I hate their auction house-ish system. It's not really an auction house. They have thousands of different merchants that are specific to guilds that are just spread out across the map. And if you don't have all of that stuff unlocked, you can't get to all the merchants, and it's an awful system. I don't know why they would do this. It's very immersive, quote unquote, I guess, but it's terrible. It's like 1.0's market
wards. Remember the market wards?
Yeah. Yep.
And
yes,
a sea of mannequins, and maybe one of those has the thing you're looking for.
But there's a website. Okay, you go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna say it's actually kind of interesting because of that, there are trading specific guilds.
Yeah.
Because guilds have to like place like bids on those storefronts each week. And so like each week they have to pay to get that spot so that they can sell outside of the guild. Like it's very interesting.
We had that
arduous,
in 1.0. They had the different stalls. You could pay to rent the stall.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that was such
it's cool. It's a cool
It's a cool system unless you want to like be able to find something.
Unless okay, so so you have to be in a guild, basically. You have to be in a trade guild to sell anything. There is no market board that you can walk up to and sell things unless you're selling stuff to NPCs, and I find that incredibly inconvenient. There are some guilds that don't require you to do anything except be in the guild and sell things, and then there are the majority of the guilds that are like, pay your 10k dues a week, and I'm like, I'm new, I can't afford that, but I have to be in this guild to make real money. There's a little bit of lenience around, but it's just, I feel like it's an overcomplicated system. Moving on from that, there is a mod there are two mods actually, that will help you figure out the price to sell stuff by gathering data from everything else in the world, to tell you what other people have this stuff up from. So it becomes very similar to the market board in that way,
Sure.
but it's just like broken down inconvenient version of it. And then my other favorite mod is called Beam Me Up, and it basically makes a list of all the people in the areas of the guilds you're in. Because the way the teleporting works in that game is if you have a friend or somebody in a guild, you can right click and teleport to them. It doesn't cost you anything. So it makes you a little list that you can just click on and go automatically to that area if somebody that you quote unquote know is in that area. And it's very free to teleport. I like free things. So
kind
yes.
of kind of what Zen is saying. And I'll like, so like first off, I think everybody's saying like don't be afraid to take a break, don't be afraid to do something really different is totally on point. I mean, I even find that I like to experiment with MMOs that are wildly different than the ones that I play. Something like ESO is a really fun contrast to 14 because you know when you start an MMO, that's the time when you're really going to be spending the most time and energy kind of investing, getting leveled, doing all that stuff. So like at any given time, having kind of like an off MMO that you can pop into can be fun
Yeah.
just to like go get a little taste of something or do something different or like feel that kind of initial push and leveling stuff as opposed to being at the end of the game. And I mean, some of them out there are really wildly different. Guild Wars 2 ESO play similarly in a sense, but then, you know, of course, there's a ton of other stuff. Phantasy Star Online 2 right now. There's so many different games that are out and that you could definitely try. When it comes to like sustaining stuff in 14, I think that like I've found, especially this go around, and especially because I mean, we've all been there. I think we're all tired. We're all low on energy. Some weeks are better than others. There are some days where I'm just like, oh, I cannot be bothered with anything. I'm so exhausted. Like I don't even know. And I found that at least for me personally, the more social elements of 14 have really like given me a lot of joy right now. So like I have been getting just super invested in RP. Like, but even if RP is not for you, there's a lot of other fun social time events, special events, performances, joining a Discord that's like yeah, like an event Discord for your data center. And you can find those sometimes even just by like shouting in the game. You can find them through Reddit. You can find them through like shouting out in other Final Fantasy Discords you're on. Does anybody have a, you know, a Discord that I could get an invite to that's about X or Y? Those sorts of things. I mean, Fusion and I were both at Sly's birthday party last week, and that was like a wild change of pace. Like
Right?
going to that birthday party, and we're standing in line, and there's just like a million people, and they had all kinds of stuff. And like the group that coordinated that, Allure Lounge, also does social events and parties and all sorts of things that you know you don't necessarily have to RP at if you don't want to, but like they had an artist there doing sketches of people's characters.
Yeah,
They had
I didn't even know that till I
performances.
saw somebody post them on Twitter. I'm like, there's like a character. I'm like, what?
I know.
It's
Like
absolutely insane.
there are a lot of different free companies, groups, social groups, housing groups that are doing a lot right now. And I think it can be a really great time to kind of like get into those more social things and just try it. And like personally, like I said, RP has been great for me. And like I found I made some alts and I, you know, started bringing my characters over to Mateus. And I've got like a group there that I'm affiliated with. And they do even like on Sundays every week a weekly mini D&D hunt. So like we go into Roll20 and we like RPR characters and there's some sort of monster and people come in and there's like a very simplified rolling system. So like even if you don't know how to do D&D, it's super accessible. And that has been so fun. But even just reaching out to people that you know that might be interested in trying their own new MMO and saying like, "Hey, can I help you get through 14? Like let's tackle it together." Or reaching out to friends and people that you know and just being like, "Hey, I am feeling kind of out of it, kind of sad, kind of depressed. I'm struggling right now. Could we maybe just coordinate like this week? I don't know, like Palace or something, or could we just like goof around and do a social night?" Or that can be really great too if you want to stay in 14, but like there's not content. Like maybe you've done a ton of other actual content, but you're looking for people just to hang out with. There's so many creative outlets. And even on Twitch, I mean, even just staying in touch with the game with broadcasters, podcasts, all those things, like us, like anyone else, right? Like
Hey.
it can be great to stay connected to the game, even if you're not in the game yourself.
I don't know about you guys, but my online friends and my real life friends only have a couple of bridges in between. I'm pointing at Charles.
Yeah.
But so they're pretty separate groups for the most part. I've actually been doing a lot more with my real life friends now that they are also stuck at home.
Sure.
But online, like for example, they all played ESO way before I did, and so now that I'm playing it with them, we kind of like eventually made the click, and I've been playing with them, and it's really fun to be interacting with people that I normally see face to face online, and like because they live kind of far away for the most part as well. And I don't know, just don't forget that you have friends everywhere. Literally, well, theoretically, you have friends everywhere. I have friends everywhere, and you can reach out to all the different groups and be like, "Hey, I know this isn't normally your cup of tea, but if you're bored, do you want to try this with me?" So yeah, absolutely, everything that Rook said about that. Like if you don't feel good, or if you notice a friend of yours is having a hard time, like just talk to them more, reach out more.
Yeah.
You'll
So
find
many
it
games
really
have like
it
online
lifts you.
co-op. There's a
Yeah.
lot of free stuff you can play online as well. And I know people will be like, "Oh my gosh," but like Epic Game Store is always giving out free games. Like there's some good, like they gave out like Civ 6, I think like a month or two ago. Like get some friends together, play Civ. There's your month. Like there you go. Like
Yeah. It's hard for me to say what to do during a content drought because I don't interact with the content all that much in the first place. However, funnily enough, because of things outside of the game that I'm going to be coy about for now, I want to start a project in which I take a new character, I get the Shadowbringers, and I go through the first because I really like the lore of the first for reasons. Like something outside of the game made me go, I kind of want to look at the lore of the first to think about it. Like maybe there's a segment of the game that you're like, you know what, maybe I will pop into New Game Plus to see it again. Or, maybe there's a job specifically that you haven't interacted with that you really want to. Like, not even for, I just wanted to be max level, because I want to know how it works, or maybe I might want to raid on it in the future. Like, this is the perfect time to just hop in, do Beastman, tribe quests. Do I like this? Do I like that? And if you don't, that's fine. Like,
yeah.
it's a good time to just try some things.
Yeah. And there's a lot of new players right now too. So I mean, if you're somebody who feels comfortable kind of like reaching out to people, I mean, if you're a mentor or something like that too, or you're close to achieving it or you can achieve it, it's a great time to just like go to Sprouts and just talk to them, or like hop in that novice network and try to be a more positive voice if your novice network is a filth fest.
Successful, yeah.
Like
Yeah.
our novice network on Zalera is really good, and I'm so proud of it. And people are so nice in there and like genuinely helpful. I've just heard stories of the other ones, but like if you are finding that your FC is kind of quiet, or like your other groups, reach out to those new players in the game, ask them what they're doing, offer help in the chat, run those mentor roulettes. There's a mount you can get from it. There's a whole bunch of stuff, right?
Yeah.
But like there are ways to reach out and sometimes like shake up our connections in the game, even if you just make a new character on a new server and just like try out a handful of FCs and just try to meet some new people. I mean, obviously take care of yourself and like make sure that like you're not like in an uncomfortable situation in an FC, or like you're looking for good connections. But like sometimes it's fun just to kind of shake up how you approach the game and engage with the game and try to do something like very different. And that can make it feel fresh and introduce you to some new people while you do.
Even go to a different like data center if you are up for the task of completely leveling a new character. Jump on a new data center and do it there, so that you can meet new people, maybe take friends with you, and you can do it together. And that way, when your friend Sly has a party on Primal, then you already have a character over there.
Exactly.
That was my thing. I have the character on Primal already, so I'm sitting over there. I needed to get invited or friend listed so I could teleport because it was in Shirogane, and I'm just like level 1. And then we get there, everybody's wearing blue, and I'm like, oh yeah, cool. I don't have dying unlocked. I was like, Rook, can you dye this? This is the only piece of gear that I can actually trade. Can you dye this and then trade it back to me?
And I was like, yeah, but I don't have any dye on this character. So we had to pilfer some dye from a Lalafell.
It was a whole thing. We're standing in line. The Lalafell is walking up and down the line with this little snack cart full of blue dragoon dye.
Yeah. Something near and dear to my heart, and if I had more time, I would do more of it, is, there is a lot of, ownership and fun to come out of being really good at that job too. You know, like you take a job that maybe you're interested in and you maybe use it. Like you just day to day use it. Maybe you've done extreme primals or something like that. This is a great time to dive into the theory crafting. You know, if you're bored, why not find out why? Hey, when I do this before this, it kind of feels weird. I hate when that happens. Why? Let's look it up. You know, like there are so many levels of understanding to each one of the jobs that aren't really apparent at first. You know, like there's so many deeper level things that are really fun to dive into if you're into that sort of thing.
Sure.
But this is a perfect time for that, because what else are you gonna do?
That same note too. It, you know, you could jump in older content and be like, let's see which extremes I can solo. You know, like,
you know, like the mastery of a job. This is the perfect time to do that sort of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool.
There's a lot of stuff to do. Try it. Yeah.
Yeah. And just a quick note, and this is just something that I'll just tack on here a little bit. Like, a lot of people are really struggling with their mental health during all of this. And this is something that we've seen a lot in the community and in the streaming community, and, you know, in content creation and just beyond, in our guilds, in our free companies, in our friends groups. If you yourself are struggling, don't be afraid to reach out. And there's so many resources. There's so many websites. You can always ask. I mean, so many people are happy to pass those on, but don't feel like right now, just because we are alone or having to socially distance, that there aren't ways to still be alone together. So try to make sure that, like, if you are really struggling and it goes just outside of content drought and it goes more into, like, I think I really am struggling with depression or other things right now, that you're not afraid to reach out. And especially now too, there are so many people who are doing remote calls and talk, and they'll, you know, they're there for you. So just, you know, keep an eye on yourselves, take care of yourselves, all that good stuff. Drink water, sleep, eat food. Like, there's a lot of little things that go into it, but your mental health is never a little thing, and just make sure you're taking care of yourself. So.
I like how Zed's cat, like, we're talking about like mental health, and the cat's like, would you like to see a cat? I'm here. Just right, coming right off the side of the screen. Just like, meow, what's up? Okay, but yeah, so definitely reach out. Things are crappy for a lot of people right now, for more reasons than one. So look out for each other. Upcoming things. There's a lot of upcoming things. So last week we didn't have an episode. We reran a couple episodes, but we actually had a meeting, which is something that we rarely do. But we had a meeting because there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff coming up. So next live letter is going to be July 22nd. And that is going to be at 4 a.m. Pacific. So that's okay. That's early. They usually are, but yeah, bedtime. Be making the coffee that morning. So that means that Saturday on the 25th, that'll be our live letter episode discussion. Then on the 11th, currently, patch 5.3 is set to release, which means on the 15th will be our hands-on episode. On the 18th, we are turning 11 years old here at Aetheryte Radio. We are old. I don't know. Just we have been around, and so we will be doing something then. Details are being worked on right now. Then on the 22nd, that'll be our patch 5.3 review show. And then on the 29th will be our 5.3 lorecast. So we have a lot of stuff coming up, which is so refreshing after these last couple months of like, so what are we going to talk about this week? So yeah, lots of fun coming up. So make sure to stay tuned to Gamer Escape and to Aetheryte Radio for those. Was there anything else that anybody wanted to add before we close this out?
No. I just patch 5.3 cannot be here fast enough.
Yeah, basically.
Right. Any other like pop culture things we want to admit to have never seen, or
I've never seen Terminator.
The Godfather.
Fusion just his eyes went so big.
Gosh.
People always forget when I'm like, I've never seen The Godfather.
I've never seen
just
The
like,
Godfather either.
There
we go. There we go.
I just
Oh.
can't.
I got mine. Mine is Firefly.
Yeah.
Serenity. Yeah, I've never seen any episode. Nope, not
I
one.
feel like you
I
would
would love
like
it. I would love it. I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, just one day, just sit down, watch that.
Oh man. All right. that is going to do it for this week. If you want, you can email us, aetheryte@gamerscape.com. You can find us on Twitter, Facebook, and Discord at Gamerscape. Discord.gg/Gamerscape. We have an Aetheryte radio channel on there where you can join us, talk about the show. We also want to give a shout out to everybody supporting us on Twitch or the show via subs or retweets, anything like that. We greatly appreciate that. And again, remember to just hanging out.
Yeah,
absolutely. And remember, lots of crazy stuff going on right now. So be there for one another. Take care of each other. Be excellent to each other, as Bill and Ted would say. And we will see you all here later.
Bye, everybody.